Erin.
I'm Oren. Thank you so much for coming today. We're all super excited to show you some of the new features in the App Store and tie it to how you can improve your app visibility and lead quality.
As you just heard from Brandon and Atlee, we're really excited to help show you our new App Store and how you can take advantage of all the new opportunities that it brings. The App Store has been in progress for some time. Again, we're really bad at keeping secrets. And a lot of you have been actually helping us build it by submitting your apps to our new enhanced listing form. And just to show you how much effort already has been put into the App Store from you, we're going to do a little audience participation exercise. It's super OK. You won't have to talk to anyone, and it'll be over really quickly. So if you or the company you represent has already submitted an app to our new enhanced listing form, could you please stand up? Oh, my God. OK, so stay standing. And stay standing if you have submitted 2 apps to the new enhanced listing form.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness. 3 apps? You know what? Like, that is, wait, are you sure? You've stood up and sat down a few times. Yeah.
I did not sit down or stood up twice.
Ever. OK. Well, anyway, thank you so much for all the effort that you've put in. We know how hard it is to migrate listings from our old App Store to our new one, and we really appreciate how much effort you've put in. So please give yourselves a hand. So we're here today to talk about 3 new major improvement areas in the App Store and how you can take advantage of them to the full extent. 1, a better user experience through our enhanced listing that leverages key activities in a merchant's discovery model. 2, better discoverability through improved information architecture that utilizes our knowledge of a merchant's pain points. And 3, personalization through improved recommendations to give you more qualified leads.
For each of these 3 updates, Erin and I are going to describe in detail what those changes are, what those changes mean for you, and give you clear ways to leverage them so you can get your apps to the right merchants at the right time. We're also going to have some Q&A at the end, so feel free, if you have any burning questions, to open up the Unite 2018 app and ask away through there.
You could do that now. If you open up the app, use the code UNITE, and we're in track 2. You can just ask the questions while we go throughout the presentation. Cool. Technology. Who knew? So before we began any of this work on the new App Store, we reached out to existing merchants and asked them how they find and choose the right app for them. We know that many of you may already have an idea of how merchants may find and choose the right app, just from being within our app ecosystem and working with merchants as part of your day-to-day. However, we didn't want to start any work on this without having real data to back up our assumptions, because we all have that gut feel that we think we know is best, but having data to back that up can challenge our perspectives. And we would consider this an investment in your business, and so we really wanted to do right by you. So we asked existing merchants 2 questions. How do they find and choose the right app for them? And how do they choose between 2 similar apps? And from those questions, we developed a model about how merchants find and choose apps. Makes sense. And in that model, there were 3 key stages that touched on the App Store. 1, merchants search for information. They reach out to search engines, online communities, social media, and simply word of mouth to find out how they can help their business grow. 2, they evaluate alternatives. At this stage, they have several app candidates in the running, and they compare their listings side by side in the App Store. And 3, they install the app to try it out. And this stage is them kicking the tires to see if they like it. It's the test drive. And this stage, the final one, is entirely in your hands. So from this model, we tried to identify all of the merchant pain points and correct for them so that you didn't have to jump through hoops or fight systems to get a merchant's attention or business. And our first stop in our hoop jumping extravaganza was user experience. And from our research, again, we knew that it was one of the major pain points of a merchant's experience. Did you know? Probably you did know that the App Store originally launched in 2009. That was when the Black Eyed Peas were topping the charts. Not funny, and it still feels like it. So we knew that the listing was a huge opportunity for us to improve a merchant's experience because the evaluation stage of their decision-making process takes place entirely on the listing. And when they're evaluating apps, merchants are very thorough. They have 4 key priorities. Determine functionality through reading an app's description. Understanding support by looking at the support sections and how you handle requests. Reading reviews and seeing how your app, has impacted other merchants' business. And finally, understanding the price. Now, for growing and larger businesses, this order of operations is true. They're much more likely to try out a paid app and uninstall it if they don't like it. However, for smaller or newer businesses, they're much more price conscious, and the impact for them to try out a paid app and then uninstall it is greater. And in the old App Store, these 4 tasks had some problems. It was difficult to determine functionality because the description was unstructured, and it was hard to see differences between app and app. This created cognitive dissonance for the merchant, and it made it difficult for them to compare between 2 dissimilar things. Understanding support. Support was buried between other critical items, and in times of need, it was hard for merchants to actually find the information that they needed to reach out to you when they need you the most. And reviews were untrusted. They could link out to inactive stores, or their order could be manipulated, which could reflect poorly on an otherwise great app. And pricing? Pricing was confusing. There was no consistent way to get an understanding of an app's pricing, especially if it had complex features or multiple plans. So what do we do for you? To help merchants evaluate your apps, we built in specific features into the listing to utilize these 4 tasks. That's a before and after. It's not an after and before, in case that was unclear. New listing. So for merchant priorities, to help them determine functionality, we've tightened up the description to make it more readable and more structured. And we've included the key benefits, which are 3 high-impact calls to action to help you quickly sell the value of your app. For support, we've cleaned up support and pulled it out to give it stronger visual signposts to help merchants find the information that they need in crises. And reviews, we built more way to explore reviews and have built out a more robust ranking system to help build trust and show how you've improved merchants' businesses over time. And price? Price is now in a standard format across the board. It's comparable between apps, and there's consistent information, so merchants can understand the differences between what each app offers. So, what do you have to remember? We've leveraged our understanding of merchant pain points so that you can describe your app concisely, so that merchants are able to predict how you can solve their problems. Be upfront and to the point about your value. Merchants compare apps together, and they repeat the same tasks over and over and over when comparing listings. And we've taken those 4 tasks and put features in to make sure that they're front and center so that you can get a merchant's attention in business.
As Brandon mentioned earlier today, to go along with the new beautiful look and feel of the App Store, we've introduced a much more complex data structure. This is really to help us understand what merchant problems your apps are solving. This allows us to be a lot more calculated and targeted when recommending and surfacing an app to a specific merchant. By looking at merchant behavior in the App Store, we notice some common trends. Number 1, merchants try and then abandon several apps before they find one that meets their needs. Number 2, merchants don't always know what problem they're trying to solve. And number 3, merchants aren't always aware that there are many apps that exist today that can help them solve their problems. It was interesting when doing our research, and this in a lot of ways came up through several merchants, but this was a specific excerpt that we just wanted to touch on. It kind of rang true for us. I haven't installed an app yet because I don't know enough about the different apps that are available, what business value they could provide me, and how they're going to help me grow my business. This is a common issue, partly because our current App Store looks like this. There are several categories, but when a merchant tries to find an app, they're simply shown every app in that category. Some of these categories have hundreds and hundreds of apps. Going through this is time-consuming, tedious, and doesn't show them the true value of what the apps can offer them in the App Store. Because of this, we've completely reclassified and remodeled every single app in the App Store to give us a much better understanding around the specific features and problems that your apps are solving for merchants. To go along with our new top-level categories like marketing and inventory management, we introduced a new subcategory to expose the new data we have to our merchants. We've also updated all of our top-level categories, added new categories, as well as added over 60 new subcategories. Let's take a look at one of our new categories now. It's called store design. Now, a merchant knows they have a problem. They're looking to visually change something on their storefront. We can now break down for them and help them achieve that in a much simpler way. Maybe they're looking for an Instagram feed, or maybe they're looking for a countdown timer to create urgency on their next flash sale, or maybe they're looking to do a mixture of the two. In the old App Store, a merchant would have to potentially go through several pages of apps. Some categories have hundreds and hundreds to find the one that they're looking for, or use the search functionality to narrow down the results. Now, they can still do this. We're not taking anything away from them. But by clicking on the top-level category, they're still going to get the list of apps. But by simply clicking on the subcategory, they're able to add filters and narrow down the results to find what they're looking for. Let's add the filter now, images and videos. You can now see that there's two filters added. There's the top-level category, which is store design, and then the sub-level category, which is images and videos. The merchant is now looking at a much more specific list that they've chosen. The only apps displayed to the merchant now are the ones that are going to help them with the specific problem they're trying to solve. A merchant will no longer need to go through pages and pages of apps to find the one that they're looking for. They'll be able to narrow down the problem quickly and find one that's going to meet their needs. Also within these categories, they can add additional filters for newest, most relevant, and most popular, as well as filter by free or paid apps. Now, because our data structure is much more robust, we actually allow your apps to be in multiple categories now. For instance, if your app is great at marketing but also has a customer support feature, your app cannot be in both those categories. Take this really cool app, for example. It's Covet.pix by our friends at Space Squirrel. Covet.pix is a really cool app that allows you to curate beautiful-looking manual or automated galleries for a merchant store. The app clearly fits in the store design category because it modifies or adds visual content to a merchant storefront. But it also falls under the sales and optimization category because it has a rich analytics tracking function and can help drive merchant sales. Now, in the old App Store, a lot of our partners felt like they would have to take an app like this and split it into two different apps and two different listings to enable more visibility on the App Store. Now, our team will tag these apps accordingly, and the App Store will service them in multiple categories to increase visibility. So what does this mean for you? With a better structure in the App Store, this means it will be easier for merchants to find the apps that they need, which can create more discovery opportunities and potential leads for your apps. Also, by enabling more visibility and transparency around the apps in the App Store, we're constantly exposing the gaps in our categories and making it super easy for all of you to see which categories are saturated or not. You'll be able to quickly see how many apps are available within each category and subcategory. And this means by simply going to the App Store and looking through it, looking for opportunity on what to build next has never been easier.
Personalization. So thanks to the granular app data of our new enhanced listing and the new classification system Oren just described, we're able to bring personalization to the next level. In 2017, there were over 5 million searches on the App Store. That's 5 million times merchants were looking on how you can help their business grow. And the fifth most asked question to our gurus was about app recommendations. We know that merchants want to find apps. And frankly, we know that the old system was not properly balanced. It was not optimally balanced, causing you to focus on optimizing for the wrong things. And it didn't use the full set of data we have available. So, in addition to everything else, we rebuilt the recommendation system to be properly balanced and utilized our knowledge about a merchant's business. The new system builds recommendations based on a business's characteristics and its workflows, what their business is, and how it's growing. I'll dig into that. In addition to the 11 other secret herbs and spices we use both segment and workflow-based recommendations. Segment-based recommendations are powered by our understanding of a merchant's business. Think of this as the Netflix-style Businesses like yours also watched style of recommendation. It's powerful, but it can't be the only data point. If we use segment-based recommendation alone, then we build a system that assumes that similar businesses want to behave like similar businesses. Location, language, industry, we're all going to be putting them in the same box, and that just isn't true for our merchants. So we include workflow style recommendations. This is not who they are or what their business is, but what it's trying to become. Think of this as the Clippy style, looks like you're trying to reduce order fulfillment times style of recommendation. We look at what stage their business is and what tasks they're trying to complete, and using our business insights, we build a match to bring them to the next level. And by using both segment and workflow-based recommendations, we build an empathetic system that cares about who they are and what they're trying to become.
App Store personalization allows apps to be displayed and recommended to a specific set of merchants who will likely find these apps useful for the task at hand, and therefore positively respond to the service offered by each app. While the algorithms behind the ranking and personalization are complex, for all of you, it's now pretty simple. The more merchants who use your app, receive great support, and find value using it, the more likely to be visible to more merchants. As a partner, you can now focus on creating the best apps that solve merchant problems and provide a great experience, and instead of spending time on App Store SEO or rankings. You'll now need to spend a lot less time trying to figure out how to be #1 in the App Store and spend more time trying to figure out how to make your merchant successful, which will in turn make you more successful. To go along with that, we're also working extremely hard to be as transparent with all of you, to show all of you what we consider to be a great and successful app. And in the next few months, we'll be coming out with a ton of content, as well as tools and tips to help you prove and maximize your visibility in the App Store. So how can you leverage this new personalization? It's pretty simple. Continue making great apps. Now, a great app doesn't just mean an app that is great at solving merchant pain points. However, that's important. It's the entire package. From how a merchant experiences it from the minute they install it, to the support they receive when they contact you if they have questions or inquiries about the app. The better the experience is, the more likely your app is to succeed. Now, today and tomorrow, there's also a ton of great talks, workshops, and office hours to help everyone make their app the best they can be. Also, one of the best ways of being visible on the App Store is by telling us what your app does. Wherever a merchant needs a hand, we'll be looking to surface an app. So make your app's value super clear. Being as clear as possible in your titles, taglines, and app descriptions will not only allow us to find you opportunity within the App Store, but also with other services in our ecosystem. The more accurate your app's content is, the easier it will be for us to find and match up you with merchants who will find value using it.
So we looked at some of the problem areas, and we focused on fixing the pain points for merchants to give you stronger, more qualified leads. So what do you have to remember? 3 things. I'm going to go over them again. 1, describe your app concisely. Merchants are busy people and compare many apps together. Be clear and powerful in your messaging and get straight to the point. 2, identify unsaturated spaces. The new category structure shows how varied our app ecosystem really is, and it's easy to see ways that your business can grow by using that to identify unsaturated and underserved areas. And finally, continue making great apps. We want success for you, and we did all of this so you can grow your business as our partner. When you do great work, you'll have all of this infrastructure behind you supporting you so you can continue to focus on your practice and improving other businesses.
All of these features we mentioned and more will be available this summer. But all of the content you've worked super hard on, curated, and submitted to us over the past few months will be available to see a preview as of today. This is also just the beginning of many changes in the App Store. We're continuously improving the experience for our merchants and trying to enable our partners to do what they do best, which is help our merchants be as successful as possible and make commerce better for everyone. Thank you.
For the office hours we mentioned, there is an API support bar and the app support bar that you can book time in and have one-on-one support. And for the larger support, we have the question period now.
Yeah.
Thank you. So from Mike Potter, one bad review can ruin an app. Why are app developers not able to respond to reviews, and when do you think this will be added to the App Store? Great question. As we said here, right now at this stage, we're focusing on improving merchant pain points, but there's so many other users and consumers of the App Store that we have right now, both you as partners, and again, the different ways that we surface app throughout the system, there's a ton of machine users. So on the next stage of our development train journey is definitely focusing on continuing out and building out those pain points. From Becca. If the usage is a factor for app recommendations, how do you plan to help new apps gain visibility and fight an echo chamber effect?
That's a good question. So there's no surprise that a new app will still have to get some installs to rise in ranks on the App Store or be recommended. But we're trying to make it so, right now, it's easier to do that. We're trying to make it easier for new apps to come in and do that. Maybe you can talk about some of the new ranking.
On the new homepage, we have a handful of new and notable systems, which is the same way that your apps can be surfaced now. And that's when we find an app, because each part of our recommendation system is also in contact with a human being, because it's so important for us to actually curate and understand what the apps are. So when we do see a great app, you're going to have all of our team out there supporting you and promoting you to help encourage it through the App Store and through the different services that we mentioned.
Yeah. To add to that, right now, some of those sections are very human-oriented. We're trying to make them a little bit more aligned with the personalization. So for instance, if an app is tagged as new and noteworthy, then it can actually be funneled through the personalization to be surfaced to more merchants, where right now, it's quite static, and we just add them in manually each week.
Ooh, from Anonymous, my favorite. How come you've decided to reuse the prominence of star ratings in the search by making it a numeric value only, without a full star rating visualization?
That's a question for you, I think.
Oh, that is a question for me. So really specific one that they pulled out when doing the search view, we use a star icon and then a numeric value that's rounded to the 0.5, so it would be like 4.5 or 5. Versus on the listing in which we show a more robust view in which there's actually stars to count. That is a UX decision for mobile optimization, because we had so much information on the search screen that we wanted to make sure that we were as concise as possible, so we used the numeric value. What is the best way to test app pricing?
That's a good question. The best way to test app pricing?
I feel like there's a handful of ways to interpret that. From Anonymous, it could be, does it test well to go with merchants? Does the billing API actually test it correctly?
I think it's about pricing plans, if I were to
Pricing
do so. Yeah, I think it's about pricing plans.
This one, Dear Anonymous, I would actually recommend booking some time with the office hours for one-on-one to see how your pricing works in relation to that. And have our team actually go through and see what it is, since that's a very specific question to an app. Yeah,
and I think also pricing is tough. Let's just be honest. It's tough to figure out exactly what plans. A lot of times when I speak with partners, they're in midst of revamping their pricing plans. So I think getting some insight from certain teams would be great. So yeah, office hours would be a fantastic opportunity to do that.
And I mentioned this, I insinuated this in the presentation, but if you offer a free or a trial plan, it's much easier to get merchants to try out your app and kind of get your foot in the door, especially for smaller businesses that might be those black swans that eventually grow into the larger, more enterprise ones. So making sure that you have accessible ways for merchants to try out your app, that's really, really helpful. Okay. Aside from recommendations, will the algorithm and ranking factors that determine positioning for apps in the App Store search results pages be updated? Yes. Sorry. That is from Howard Moon. So our recommendation system is consistently evolving. As I said, that there's a very high touch factor for us on there. There's an incredible amount of human insight and power being put towards it, and we're going to be continually testing and changing it as we see it grow and as we see the ecosystem change. Because as developers, we're only as good as the data set we have available to us, and the data set is always, always, always changing. So it's going to be reflective and changing, and I would be very excited to be here next year to see what it actually is. Oop. Okay, I have some house cleaning that I have to do here. There. Ooh, from Anonymous, have app reviews been updated to combat the 1-star blackmail? Can I take that?
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot of our app reviews, how we're actually going through that and correcting for some of that, is that the most recent reviews that you'll see on the page itself, they're going to be able to be sorted by the merchants, and so merchants can actually go through and explore and see how the reviews are actually ranked and understood, as opposed to that static version that is currently there. How the 1-star ranking works right now, that's going to go under consistent evolution. As I mentioned before, we're looking at each individual part of it, and we're trying to be really targeted in what we focus on. So the ranking of the 1-star reviews, manipulating the reviews so that one can go up to the top, that's all been addressed. And we will continue to, again, look at that fairly closely. Boop. Anonymous. Will honest pricing be enforced in the new App Store? Not stating that the app is free if it's not totally free, or saying only from $0.
No, because so before it was like a one price plan basically, right? And it was from to whatever, right? So now there's multiple price plans, and I mean we do leave it up to the ecosystem to be fair in their pricing. I think we're not going to be moderating every single price plan to make sure that the billing API is matching up with the price that's shown. We may in the future, but right now I think if it was dishonest, then merchants are going to figure that out, right? And that's going to perform worse to those merchants. And I don't think that we're going to moderate at this time. Yeah.
Also, for the smaller app surfaces, like that you would see pulled out on the homepage category or the search page, it says free plan available now. And there's different ways that we're actually trying to surface that freemium style of free paid app throughout the ecosystem. What criteria, oh, Jeff Bezos, what criteria is used to, that's what they wrote, used to prioritize app recommendations to merchants?
To prioritize app recommendations.
So without going into the specific areas that we're going to be surfacing, what we spoke about was on the segment and workflow-based recommendations. So we're going to be using that in conjunction with how the App Store traditionally ranks apps within a search results to surface them for recommendations. So as an example of what I mean by that is if there's, again, order fulfillment. If we know a merchant is struggling with order fulfillment, and we know that the merchant has a Japanese language in their administrative view, we're going to be finding apps that hit those intersections that we know have great reviews, great support, and are otherwise an app that would get higher up rankings in the App Store. We're going to be pushing those out to them. So it's, again, think about who the merchant is and what kind of stage their business is at and what tasks they're trying to complete, and that's the spaces that we're trying to fill out apps for our app recommendations.
Yeah, just to add to that too, like what we had before was very similar in just the so we were talking about like the workflow with the lookalike personalization and recommendations. The other side of things, we're just expanding that out. So if you look at the old App Store, there was like a couple inputs. There was reviews and installs. What we're doing to marry that information with the lookalike and the personalization is really just expanding that out to a bunch more inputs. That's going to give us a much better understanding around basically how the app is, and that's really the fundamental change in the recommendations. I hope that kind of answered the question. That was.
If we don't answer your question clearly or don't get to your question, please feel free to connect with us on that Click app and set up one-on-ones and have a discussion, or reach out to our office hours to get your question answered, by the way. Yeah.
Do one more? 'Cause we're-
Yeah. Okay, one more. I really like the next one. Sorry. Miss Mike Potter, how do we get our app listed in 2 categories?
Good question. So we've gone through every single app listing that's been submitted, or the V2 app listing that's been submitted so far, and they've been added to the specific category. That said, we know some of you won't be super happy with the category because that's going to change. So we're going to create a process before the App Store launches to change that in some way. Because we review these apps and we tag them, obviously, but we want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the taxonomy and the classification that your app is in. So yeah, before the App Store launches, we'll have communications for that.
And as an example, we're out of time. Do 2 things great, not 2 things poorly. That is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you, and we're excited to talk.